Oh, hey, what's up?
What's up, dude?
What's
How you
up?
doing?
Good.
Good, man. You told me you'd be back here on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I'm like, here we are.
Lived up to my word.
All right.
How's it going?
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. We just finished talking about astrology with someone. That was fun.
Astrology, really? What were you guys talking about it?
Just is it true? Are there good reasons to believe it?
What did they say?
They were about that confident about it by the end and had a lot of questions about it by the end, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah. You got some friends here?
Yeah, they're interested in this type of stuff too.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
I'd love to chat with whoever.
Of course.
Yeah, and want to do headphones?
Yeah, let's put them in.
And I apologize. What's your name again?
No worries, Riley.
That's right.
Yeah.
Riley. Yeah, Reed.
Yeah, Reed, I remember you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, and we have talked before.
Mm-hmm.
I know we got to like socialism.
We were talking about critical race theory.
Critical race theory to socialism.
And then we started talking about socialism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me try to find my last notes with you.
Yeah.
I didn't have any notes.
Yeah, but I'm down to talk about that. Really, like, I'm here to dominate the marketplace of ideas. Dominate the marketplace of ideas.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Hell yeah.
But yeah. So anything like that, anything even a little like spicy, controversial, anything like that, I'm down to talk about.
I talked with someone last week.
Mm-hmm.
We started with critical race theory and then got to like a communistic revolution.
Really?
So it's like
I saw a YouTube video last week, and there was one girl you were talking to. She was talking about Angela Davis.
Yeah, that was
maybe
her.
It was that. That was very, very interesting to me. Yeah.
You saw that one?
I saw that. Yeah, I was very impressed by her.
You were impressed by her?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and the question was like revolution or reform is required to make the world a better, or is the best way to make the world a better place.
Okay, I like that idea.
The revolution or reform question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was one question we talked about. But you watched the video. Any other thoughts about the video? The conversation?
I only watched a couple parts of it. I think one of the things she was talking about was she was talking kind of about redemption and reprisal versus forgiveness in a criminal justice system. So was she kind of talking about the ethics of forgiving people versus the idea of like an eye for an eye, kind of?
Yeah,
or what else was she talking about?
Like restorative justice versus, what is it called? Retributive justice? Like the eye for an eye.
Right.
Maybe not that far, but just some kind of punishment is involved for the crime.
Yeah.
Versus what she called restorative justice, which might involve forgiveness.
I see.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of the quality of our justice system versus other justice systems right now? That's another question.
Sure, yeah. I think in general, I have a pretty poor view of what our justice system is in America. I mean, everybody's heard this. We have 5% of the world's population, yet at the same time we have 20% of the world's incarcerated people. So we see a really, really high overrepresentation of these people, and I think if tough on crime policies, for example, like 3 strikes laws, actually worked, then we would have exactly the opposite scenario on our hands where people fare far, far better, and there's a higher total, welfare, and we see less people in jail because then these people actually would be genuinely scared of, committing these crimes and then going to jail. But I think the failure of it is something that is a result of other variables. We can talk about economics and poverty and other really specific programs. Many of them have a distinct racial element to them. So we could talk about, the war on drugs, for example. But more broadly, what I genuinely believe in, you guys are kind of out here emphasizing philosophy, is that an eye for an eye makes everybody blind. And, reprisal isn't justice. And inflicting pain, for example, capital punishment, if we want to talk about the ethics of the death penalty, makes you on the same level as somebody that committed that heinous crime, assuming that they actually did commit that crime. So I think that, if we are to act that way, that person treated that other person when they perpetrated that crime, then we're not morally superior to them by any means. And then another story that I found really, really interesting is, I believe it was in Norway. I think it was in like 2014. There was this, he was a neo-fascist. I think he was a Nazi. And there was this socialist camp for kids on this island. And this was unbelievable. There was a mass shooting. He killed about 50 of them. And they don't have the death penalty in that country. And it was so heinous that it kind of pushed the envelope. And there was actually a bit of a debate because what this guy did was so insidious. They were talking about, hey, maybe this person does deserve the death penalty. But it was in a Michael Moore documentary, and they were interviewing one of the victim's parents, and what I heard him say was very profound, which is that he understands, just how much grieving he's going through, but the pain and anguish that he's experiencing is not going to be ameliorated by excising a similar type of violence on the perpetrator of this person. So I think that's a very different way of thinking about criminal justice and thinking about ethics in general and how we treat other people despite the way that they may treat their victims. So I guess those are kind of my starting thoughts about it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I'd love to focus on a specific question, and maybe the policy of three-strike laws or the policy of the death penalty would be a good question to focus on. And we talked a lot about the death penalty so far.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about the death penalty.
Yeah. Is it a state-level policy for the United States, I think? Or is it a federal? Or is there a federal policy?
They have the death penalty. Well, many states have outlawed it, but I know Texas hasn't. Yeah. But on the federal level, let's say you commit a crime in the U.S. that's a federal crime, then even though the death penalty is not legal in California according to state law, they still have a federal death penalty, which is very rare, and you'd have to commit an exceedingly heinous crime to get the federal death penalty. But that's sort of how it works.
Yeah, we'll just say the broad question: Should there be a death penalty wherever people live?
No.
Yeah, okay. You're saying no.
No, under no circumstances.
Under no circumstances. What's your confidence about that on your confidence scale?
100.
All right. You can move it all the way to the left, white side. All right. And I like to keep my pen out of it unless you ask.
Sure.
If you want me to, I will.
No, I'm interested to hear your opinion.
Okay.
As well, yeah.
I haven't thought about it too much. I don't know how many states have it. You said Texas has it, and I think most don't at this point, right?
I believe a majority of states don't have the death penalty.
Yeah. I would lean slightly yes.
Okay.
I'm still very much in the middle, but I'm not like absolutely yes, everyone should have it. Like slightly that way.
Mm-hmm.
I guess. But
tell me about your position on this.
I don't know. I haven't thought about it. It's like an intuition thing. Like if we have virtual certainty someone committed a heinous crime. I'm fine with killing them. But it would have to be a very high bar of evidence, and it'd have to be a very high bar of crime. But if it was both of those conditions were met, then that's fine.
Mm-hmm. And then we can talk about the principle of it ethically, in and of itself, but about a significant portion of people that are put on death row and are put to death, about 10% of them are later found innocent. So if you're going to be okay with the death penalty, what percentage of people are you okay with being executed, even though we find, empirically speaking, that they're innocent later?
Probably like 1 out of 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see. So since it's 10%, which is one out of 10, that should change your position on it
If we
then.
can't do better than that, we should not have the death penalty for sure.
All right, I respect the consistency of that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also heard the argument that it's expensive because people in death penalty they're going to try to appeal it, and then that requires a lot of money to appeal it in the system.
Yeah, it actually costs way more money. It's very cumbersome on our tax dollars to keep somebody on death row, because a lot of these people are on death row for many, many years as well. But I'm curious to see what in your eyes is a crime that's deserving for the death penalty.
Serial raping of children would be a good one. Like if you've raped 10, 20 below, children below the age of 10. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So many members of the Catholic Church then.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah. So what in your mind, because I've kind of laid out my philosophical view of why I'm unequivocally against the death penalty in principle and in practice, what's your justification for saying it's permissible?
Ultimately, it's we the people decide what is legal and illegal in our society. That's where the power of the law and the monopoly on violence comes from. The state does have a monopoly on violence. We put it in their custody, and if we want them to be able to exercise that violence and you give it to the police, and then we also why not give it to executioners for people who have committed such heinous crimes. The state commits violence all the time. That's a precedent. What's so bad about this particular instance of violence?
Mm-hmm. So, are you saying that it's tolerable because the Constitution says so?
It's tolerable because of public reason and criticism. If we can get to a point where we reason that it is ethical, then we can use the state to execute our policy based on reason.
Mm-hmm. So, I know this isn't specifically the argument that you're making, but when we say, we the people, we're talking about the preamble. And if we're going to talk about constitutional law, for example, it's very, very clear on something like the death penalty. You have a protection from cruel and unusual punishment, which means the death penalty which also means, torture as well. And then what you're saying is that, are you saying that the morality of it is guided by public reason?
Yeah.
So are you saying that the death penalty is wrong if the majority of people say that the death penalty is wrong?
It's not a mere popularity poll, as long as the argument is solid, then people have a chance to criticize the argument, and it comes out that way through public criticism. That's fine with me, as long as the argument is there and people have a chance to make the argument and criticize the argument.
So what you're saying is that you want the institution of government to be the one that makes a sound argument, and then the people should be able to, censure it or approve it on their own will? If I'm hearing you correctly, is that kind of your position on it?
Yeah, there's checks and balances of, like, once we get up to the Supreme Court, if they make if the case for the death penalty is made well and it's put into law, or the Supreme Court does not forbid it, then that's a potential law the states could use, or a potential activity that can't be prohibited to happen. So it's about that argument in whatever legal situation that's happening. And if the people disagree with the law, they can change the court. Whoever's in the courts, that's another check on it over time, and it can all be revised eventually if we change our mind about it.
Mm-hmm. So, kind of to zoom out, there's several justifications for me being anti-death penalty. We can justify it from a utilitarian point of view or a deontological point of view as well. But when we talk about public policy, because what it seems like you're saying is that it's about legal reason, for example, and here's why the Bill of Rights is so imperative, because the role of the Supreme Court is to interpret, our first 10 amendments, and, this is why, it's really indisputable, in my opinion, what the Constitution says about cruel and unusual punishment. And that's what the Supreme Court, as an instrument of government, is obligated to uphold and protect. So, would you disagree with that? I'm curious to see why.
Yeah, it's like, is executing a criminal cruel and unusual punishment? I guess solitary confinement is one candidate for cruel and unusual punishment, and that still happens. But, like, I don't know, what is the line, what is the criteria for cruel and unusual? Like, we're not torturing them, it's like a very quick process. Is prison in general cruel and unusual punishment? No. Is it, like, which is worse, to live your entire life in prison or to be killed if you're a criminal of some kind, which is more just or ethical to do? If, like, there's no chance this person is being let out back into society, now it's just, they're just in the custody of the state. So, yeah, it's like, how do we define cruel and unusual punishment? If that is unconstitutional, would that apply, the death penalty? I lean towards no.
Mm-hmm. Because the thing is, when we're talking about cruel and unusual punishment, what we're saying is that, we could punish and we could prevent this person from being a menace to society without taking these measures that, threaten, that, necessarily take their life. And the thing is, too, is the death penalty. It's not just taking somebody's life, but in my view, the same way that terrorism is based on optics and really instilling a sense of fear into people, what the government is doing is they're taking an example. It's usually something that happens on a very large public scale, and they're using that as a way to scare people and as a method to, assert social control and maintain dominance that way through fear, for example. And then I also really, on social issues like this, I really do have a bit of a libertarian edge, where what I mean is that I fundamentally don't believe that the government has the right to take life from somebody, and I also don't trust the government. I don't think they have I don't want to give the government that much power or responsibility, and I think the vast majority of the American people are actually with me on this. And one example of this is not just the war on drugs, but we also see, very obvious examples of systemic racism carried out in the criminal justice system. But one great example of it is with the death penalty, where white and black people on death row, it was calculated by a big meta-analysis by the ACLU a couple years ago that they commit the same crimes at the same rate, yet despite this, black people are about 4 times more likely to get the death penalty. So I think that's one example. And then the other thing too is, if you're gonna tolerate the death penalty, where does it stop? Why don't you not have an issue then with tolerating torture? For example, why is it wrong to torture people, say, at Guantanamo Bay, for example, if it's not wrong to take somebody's life with the death penalty?
Gotcha. Yeah, I heard the tyrannical reason, like, it gives the state too much power, which could lead to tyranny. And, like, I also heard it does not deter crime. People who say there should be a death penalty, it says it deters crime, but that's potentially not the case. Yeah. Both of those. Those are good reasons. And part of the unethical is like the systemic racism part. It's like, and there's also, you said something about, it's like a reputational damage reason. It's not a good look for the U.S. to have that law.
I think it depends who you ask, because I think there's a very deliberate purpose behind it. I think it does a tremendous job of making people absolutely petrified. And I think when we look at the areas that it's applied to and who it disproportionately hurts, I think it's very analogous to when, say, there were lynchings, and it wasn't just the crime that took somebody's life there, but it was the fact that everybody knew about it, and it instilled a sense of fear. And kind of the utility of that was that it was intended to keep people in line.
Another form of tyranny, the lynchings. Okay. Yeah, like, as long as it's being done for people who have obviously made a crime, and obviously the crime is at a certain level, like the lynchings in the past do not meet those criteria. It's definitely by today's standards, for sure, or the ideal standards. So, yeah, I'd love to weight these reasons.
Mm-hmm.
What are some other potential reasons on the other side you've heard that for the death penalty that maybe I'm missing? Is it like it is an ethical thing to do? Is that a reason people say?
Yeah, I guess you could, say it's sweet redemption. I guess
It's like
that's what some people say.
It's more like just. It's a just thing to do.
Yeah, I guess you could say it sort of evens things out.
Yeah.
Trying to think if there's anything else. I don't remember why, but there's
They could be bad reasons, just
yeah.
reasons.
I don't know where they get the biblical injunction from, but I know there's many people on the Christian right that believe they have a theological justification. I don't know where it's from though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a reason.
Yeah.
What is that reason? Theological.
I don't know.
That would just be a reason for thinking it's just because God says so.
I mean,
or there's precedent in the Bible about the death penalty.
Perhaps. I don't know. I think you can pull just about anything out of the Bible if you try to.
Yeah. All right. Any other main category reasons to think about this?
I think. I mean, we can talk about how it's ineffective, but then also that
it doesn't deter crime.
Oh yeah, it. I think one of the main reasons and one of the strongest reasons is that it kills innocent people.
That would be unjust.
Oh yeah, I guess that falls under that category then.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
All right, so there's a lot to go into a bunch of these.
Yeah.
So let's just
absolutely.
That's now. You got time?
Yeah, I have some time.
Okay. I've got some weights here. Let's start from the left, going to the right. How much of a weight you have 5 out of 5 in terms of weight for the quality of the reason, whereas tyrannical as the reason, and like to be specific, the premises within that is like the United States should not be tyrannical, and the death penalty is tyrannical. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. How much of a weight of a reason should that be?
How many do I have altogether?
You have for the 5 out of 5 in terms of the weight for each reason. They're in that little box too.
Okay.
I put them down to 5 instead of 10.
Yeah,
the last time there was 10. Like got stuck in there.
Wait, so for each reason I have a little.
You have we're gonna put a color on each of these.
Okay, I see.
And like we'll see where it weighs up.
Okay. So out of 5 for tyrannical.
Yeah. Taking into account all the reasons for and against that reason that we potentially could get into,
but I'd give it a 5.
5.
Yeah.
Okay. What color you want to use? Black.
Yeah, I'll use black.
All
right. Any side, I guess.
Yeah, the left side. Yeah.
Left side. Okay.
Alrighty. Unethical. Sounds like another 5.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna use white. Expensive? Is it just as big as both of those reasons? Or
I'd say that's like a 3.
3.
Yeah.
You
should go.
We'll use the green.
Scott, just go eat.
What?
Don't worry about me. Go eat.
Okay.
I don't want to hold you up.
3.
All right. All right.
Deters crime. Does that have any weight or 1? Or where would you put it?
I'd give that a 3.
3. Okay.
That'll be red.
Red. Okay. And just.
I mean, am I assuming that it is just, and then I wait?
This is how much weight you're giving each reason.
Oh, personally? Oh, if I'm gonna weight how much it deters crime from my perspective,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna give it 0.
Oh, 0. Okay.
And then in terms of just, I'm gonna give it 0 again.
Another 0.
Yeah.
So all the weights on that side.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's no reason with any weight on the other side.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Which is the biggest reason here to go into?
Unethical, I'd say.
Alrighty. Yeah. What is your waiting process for that reason?
Basically, that you're no better than a murderer when your solution to a situation in which there's one loss of life is duplicating that, where you simply try to solve the fact that one person died by killing another person. It's not going to bring another person back. It's just going to leave you with 2 dead people instead of 1 dead person. So I feel like that's pretty simple that way. Then the other thing I'd say is that it's deeply, deeply inhumane, regardless of what anybody has done for a person, much less a government, to be legally sanctioned to take the life of somebody else and to legalize, the killing of another living human being. So that's what I would say about how it's, deeply, deeply unethical, and, more or less an eye for an eye simply leaves everybody blind.
Okay. I'd love to get these on a scale of like unethical.
Sure.
If 10 is completely unethical, 0 is not unethical at all. Let's try to put these on a scale. Like 3rd-degree murder, the death penalty, 1st-degree murder, and self-defense. Like you kill someone in self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a scale of 0 to 10, what number goes on on all of these?
Wait, what do you mean by a number for each of them?
Like 10 is the most unethical, 0 is not unethical at all, like ethical.
Yeah,
So
how do you define 1st and 3rd-degree murder?
Yeah, I've heard that term. Like, I don't even know the specifics. It's like 1st-degree murder is like you intended to kill this person and you did it, like yourself. 3rd-degree murder is like I have to look that up.
Is that like you're driving, you accidentally run somebody over?
I think it's more almost accidental or something. Or want me to look up the definition?
Yeah, go for it.
And there's obviously, I assume, 2nd degree. That's okay. Yeah. 1st degree is unlawful killing of a human being with malice of forethought. Like that's with intent and premeditation. Let me go back. 2nd degree is murder as applied to all murders that do not qualify under the 1st degree. Is any type of unlawful killing that is done with malice of forethought, but without premeditation. So you're just in a situation, potentially, I think, and you find yourself killing someone. Let's go. 3rd degree is... Oh, there's no such thing as 3rd-degree murder under California law.
Interesting.
But so maybe we should turn that into 2nd degree. It only exists in 3 states: Florida, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota. And it's very similar to manslaughter, which is like... I think that's accidental, I think. Someone must act with disregard for human life and depraved mind. So it's like an accidental thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But it's like you're like reckless driving and you kill someone. I think that's close to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like driving under influence is like
I see.
As a common one.
Well, based on the definition of 1st-degree murder, I don't see a difference between that and the death penalty.
Okay.
So, 10 is, it's very, very unethical?
Yeah.
All right, so I'd say death penalty and first-degree murder are both 10s.
Okay.
Third-degree murder,
Yeah, that's like a manslaughter, accidental. You're reckless.
it's an oopsie.
Yeah.
Gosh. I think 7.
7.
Self-defense, I'd give it a 1.
1.
Yeah.
Okay. And the death penalty is at a 10?
Yeah.
It isn't it kind of intention. We are intending to kill the person.
Exactly.
It is premeditated. There's
Exactly.
a whole plan.
Exactly. Yep.
So that kind of goes into it. But is there a moral difference between killing a criminal for a certain crime and killing an innocent? Ideally, hypothetically, it's all first-degree murders killing innocent people. Like innocent. Does that go into it at all?
You know, in principle, I see no difference between taking somebody's life, regardless of what on earth they did before. I think you can take the most heinous people, like take everybody from the Nuremberg Tribunal. I still don't see any justification for taking their life at the end of the day.
Because it's unethical is the main reason we're thinking of now.
Yeah, because there's no doubt that these are objectively worse people than innocent people, but you still have no more of a right to take that person's life.
Because what are the reasons for that?
What I'd say is that life is sacrosanct, and
Can people kill in self-defense if life is sacrosanct?
yes, because it's
It's protecting your own life.
yeah, because there's a couple things I'd say. You're protecting your own life, and you also have a right to your own body. You have a right to bodily sovereignty.
Yeah.
That way. So those are, I mean, I don't like it's technically not murder, but here's the thing too. I'm very pro-choice. I don't really care if people call it killing. I frankly don't care if it's a person or not, because what I'm saying is that you can even classify it as self-defense, where you have a right to your own body, you have a right to bodily autonomy, and if something seriously infringes on that, where somebody's trying to kill you or somebody's trying to, occupy your body against your consent. For example, you could say in the case of rape, you also have, a full right to self-defense that way.
Yeah. So what number would be abortion? Is that also a self-defense thing?
Yeah, I'd give that a 1 also.
Okay. That's fair. Alrighty, cool. Alright. So I'm hearing the death penalty is just as bad as first-degree murder because life is sacrosanct. It's not in a situation where you're protecting your own person, that bodily autonomy, because they're already under control. They're
Right.
in prison. They're not a threat to anybody really anymore. So at this point, it's just unethical because life is sacrosanct.
Yeah,
Even it applies to criminals of like that. type
I
of
think
criminal.
I think given the right that somebody is not directly compromising or threatening or potentially taking somebody else's life, I think everybody should agree that they have a right to not be killed. And simply killing somebody is not going to ameliorate any of these issues on an ethical level.
It won't ameliorate them.
Mm-hmm.
It won't make it a more ethical situation if there's revenge by the state, pretty much.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. justice is related to ethics. Is justice nested within ethics? Like, if something is unjust, can something be just and unethical?
It depends on your type of. This is interesting. We're kind of getting into meta ethics
Yeah.
a bit here. At least according to me, I think justice is based on ethics, and a justice system ought to be based on that. Fundamentally, and there's different types of ethics, like we talked about earlier. There's religious ethics, there's utilitarian ethics, there's deontological ethics, but I'd broadly call myself like I guess there's not an exact name, but probably like a utilitarian with deontological characteristics, where I really do value individual rights, especially on social issues. So in my view, I think ethics are, in my mind, they're pretty objective. I know a lot of people are into moral relativism. I'm not so much a fan of that, for other reasons we can get into, but I don't think that there's really a gulf between what is just and what is ethical.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, well, I'm hearing a more deontological thing with life being sacrosanct. That's not like a consequential utilitarian thing. It's not like if we have this thing.
I actually think it's both.
Yeah.
I think you can be why I'm an anti-death penalty. Even if I was only utilitarian or only deontological, I think my arguments would still be sound.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So it's like let's now think, what is the argument for the unethical? It's like, it's unethical because life is sacrosanct, and if you kill someone with the death penalty, you're taking away life.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those, that is a valid argument, and the soundness of life is sacrosanct, I heard reasons, I forgot them. It's just a deontological thing, or is it and we could go into consequential reasons for having that principle. What are the consequential reasons for that?
Mm-hmm. I broadly think that morality is objective because I think what's wrong and right is mainly defined as what brings the most good, as Aristotle would say, or what brings the most pleasure, relative to pain. And these are all based on stimuli in the human mind, and I think that's really ultimately all we have. And I think if someone says, life is not about maximizing how good you feel, then what I always say to them is, all right, like, what's the alternative then? If it's not about maximizing happiness and minimizing pain, go run to the back of that restaurant and put your hand on a stove, and then try to tell me otherwise, because I really don't like him for other reasons. But a couple of years ago, I was really into, you might know him, his name is Sam Harris.
Yep.
I was really into reading him. I read The Moral Landscape when I was more into philosophy, and what he's basically saying is that with human experience, there's highs and lows, and we can say, hey, here's a bad life, and think of what that would be, and then there's a good life that's really maximally beneficent. And for morality to be objective, we do not need to know exactly where something is, but we need to understand that there's a range of human values that way.
Better and worse.
Yeah, better and worse.
It's like if we move from the worst possible misery for everyone, that's like the
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
bad.
more or less like that.
That's
yeah.
bad. Then we can measure where we're heading.
Mhm. Mhm.
Similar to like health. Well-being is like health.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's related to life as sacrosanct, and by that we mean like sacred, infinite value, complete. And is that, and the consequentialist argument for that is, we know that morality is objective, and killing someone is objectively wrong.
I'd say that's fair, yeah.
And why is killing people with the death penalty objectively wrong?
Because I think if we're trying to base this on the view of ethics I was talking about, it's crystal clear that killing somebody decreases that person's welfare, and then it also decreases the aggregate welfare. So I think if we're looking at it as a moral landscape, it's a trough. Or like another metaphor is like if we're walking back there to like where there's a hill there, and we're walking back to like all the dorms and everything, like right there by the Bruin Bear, we're kind of there comparatively because we are really at the bottom point of the human experience and maximal welfare for everybody by doing that. Or I should say you're definitely getting closer to there by pursuing that course of action.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely lowers the well-being of the person being killed.
Yeah.
How does it lower the well-being of other people?
So it really depends on the circumstance. If it, lowers the well-being of other people, I think anybody, their well-being should be lowered by that if they're not suffering from psychopathy. So I think the fact in and of itself that, there's a living, breathing human being that's being killed should, lower the welfare of other people.
Okay. Interesting hypothetical. I'm just thinking of if we empirically tested that, if we had like people, like a person being killed by the death penalty next month, and we empirically tested the well-being of people who knew about that death,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't. Well, I'm hearing you say if we empirically tested that, we would predict they would have less well-being in some empirical measurable way.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know what your method would be, but I'm sure there's polls about it.
Yeah, if we had some like high-quality method.
Yeah,
to get that.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And we tested that.
Mm-hmm.
What if it was positive well-being?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we could do that, or just hypothetically if that happened.
Yeah, because I think, are you saying what if that was positive and aggregately there was so much well-being of all these people, and somehow the well-being superseded the suffering of the person that died?
I remember people dancing in the streets when Osama bin Laden was killed. Remember?
I was young then, but I remember when they killed him.
Yeah, I remember seeing that online and having a rush of joy. So
yeah, dude. I mean, congrats. The U.S. killed the guy that they created. It's terrific.
So I don't. That may be just unethical people have been enjoying positive well-being. Like, or how are we measuring morality then?
That's interesting, because the thing is too, when Donald Rumsfeld died, to put it mildly, I did not shed a tear about that one bit.
Dick Cheney.
Yeah, the other side of that coin. Yeah, I'm still waiting on Kissinger.
Is there anybody alive today that if they died, you would have positive emotion?
Yes.
Okay.
Kissinger.
Kissinger.
That guy. Yeah. Anyway, but I digress. But that's an interesting point, and that's what I've thought about it. There's this book called Moral Tribes by
Chula.
John Green, I think. Not the Crash Course guy. Another guy named.
Another John Green.
Or maybe it's Josh Green. I don't know. But he talks about that, and he says, these are what people, often say to, utilitarians. They give them these thought experiments, and it's like, the other example, like what if, the Romans throwing them into the pit of lions actually does make everybody happier on balance, and despite that there's a miraculous cost, that overall people are happier. One, I don't know how we would measure that, but that's what I like about the moral landscape is we don't need an exact, objective metric to know that it's subjective. But I think for basically everything I've seen in the real world, I think utilitarianism is quite valid. But then another example that Josh Green talks about is he said, what if on balance people did own slaves and it did make them, happier overall, and it made so many people so much happier despite, the obvious, like, really deleterious impact that has on the slaves. We're doing thought experiments, guys.
Yeah,
Don't take any of this out of context, okay?
Yeah, we're finding some repugnant conclusions here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think in philosophy, if you really think about this stuff, you can get to some really, really weird conclusions. But I think, fortunately, they don't really exist in the real world. But I think, like, deontologically, like, the kind of the idea of, like, bodily autonomy and the right to life would still, trump the enjoyment that, people would get, even in a really sick way, out of seeing other people suffer and die.
Yeah, if we had, like, a deontological reason for this, then it would just violate that principle, obviously.
Yeah, because
and that's that.
Because the thing is, I'm not gonna, because based on what he's done in his life, I'm not gonna be sad when Kissinger dies, but I would think it would be very, very wrong, for him to get the death penalty. Okay. Still, because it's my emotions, and emotions don't make something right. That's just genuinely how I would feel, but I don't really know if I could really square that with reason. Same, you were talking about Osama bin Laden, same with Saddam Hussein, when they gave him the death penalty, I thought he was a terrible guy. We're not really talking about geopolitics right now, but yeah, really terrible guy. But I still thought it was exceedingly wrong. It could not be more morally reprehensible to give him the death penalty.
Mm-hmm. We would be in a better world if he was just in jail, right, in prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Same with serial pedophiles.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, great convo. Thank you. I enjoyed this. It's very in-depth.
Riley.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Wonderful.
Love going into these things.
Yeah, totally.
Is this your third time?
I think this is the third time,
so
yeah.
You got the whole set now.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Did you get the puzzle pieces last time?
Yeah.
I need to get refilled.
Take another one. On the same YouTube channels, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sweet. Thank you, Riley. Hope to see you again. Thanks. Anytime.